Like the last thing I saw you on was like the Paul Simon tribute.
Yeah.
What a player you are.
Thanks for saying that.
What song did you sing him to?
I did a couple. I did one with Bonnie. I did.
But what was the song? Because I know every.
I did Kodachrome.
Kodachrome,
which
to
was
start
a blast.
like open the show, right?
Yeah.
And then you did another one, a slow one.
Yeah, I played guitar for Bonnie and sang harmony on Bonnie Raitt. Did Something So Right, which is it's a jazz song. That's just.
You know who does an amazing cover of that is Barbra Streisand.
Oh, I bet.
Did you know that?
No, I've never heard that.
It's on the Way We Were album.
Oh wow, I should look that up.
You absolutely have to.
Because the thing about Paul, it's so funny. All of us backstage, we were all shitting a brick because, like, here's Kodachrome that all of us know. We know it by heart, right? Except until you try to play it, and there's a 3-bar phrase, and then it's a 5-bar phrase the second time before it goes into the chorus, and it's so intricate and crazy the way he would write. I think he would like try to screw with bands that wanted to cover his material and make it too hard for anybody to play.
It's funny you say that because I remember reading, and I'm a huge Paul Simon fan.
Me
but
too.
Sometimes people can be so good and so far advanced in what they're doing that they can get a little ahead of the parade where the regular people are.
Oh yeah. He's living in another planet. I mean, Paul is such
I know, but
a genius.
you can't remember where the parade is.
Well, but what's crazy is he's made a career of doing that exact thing and everyone loves it and wants more. And I don't think anybody else has gotten away with being that brilliant for that long.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, honestly, and I love some of the album, like the two in the early 80s were flops, and they're my favorites. One Trick Pony.
One Trick Pony's great.
Which is another very jazzy, because it's that kind of, it's about a band on the road.
Yeah.
And all the songs, it's almost reminds me of Jackson Browne's Running on Empty album, which they recorded in hotel rooms and on the bus, and it sounds, it was 1977, it still sounds amazing. And that was the feel of One Trick Pony, because he was a singer in a band.
Yeah.
You know, and he had a hit.
Totally.
But it wasn't, but now his career wasn't going, it never really took off.
I love it when he does the sort of premise, almost what I'd call, it's like a soundtrack. It's like he creates characters in a fictional movie around the album. He just sent me his new record last week, which is just about to come out. So we're on here to plug Paul now, which is great. Let's do it. But it's called 7 Psalms, and he's so, like you say, ahead of the parade. It's one file. It is 33 minutes, no breaks. You can only hear the whole thing.
Yeah, see, that doesn't work for me.
I loved it.
But you're a musician.
The way he is, I talked to him about it this week. I said, so how did you do this? And he said, I said, what about the presentation on this and how's that going to work for people? He said, I don't care, it's how it's supposed to be presented.
Yeah. Okay. You know what I was going to say is I remember reading an interview with him maybe like, this century, like 10 years ago or something, and he was talking something about like there were tonal deep like gradations that we hadn't been aware of. And I remember like, first of all, I don't give a fuck. Like I'm just I'm the consumer here, and for so long I felt, and look, there's stuff he's put out in this century that I do still like, but it's not, I feel like the commercial, he hit that sweet spot between it's commercially just fantastic, but also original.
Yeah, yeah.
And
for sure,
nothing is formulaic. I mean, some of these songs. The other album that did not do well, I don't think, in the early '80s was Hearts and Bones, which is an amazing record.
That's amazing.
The title song. I mean, remember the late great Johnny Ace? Do you remember that song he wrote when John Lennon died?
That's right.
Oh,
I know, but he's like, and it's so funny when you talk to him too about this stuff. It's so interesting because what you're doing is you're discussing, a friend of mine and I were talking about it the other day, you're discussing the theory of relativity with Einstein, but meanwhile Einstein wants to know what you think. It's so interesting because it's like, you're so far advanced ahead of us, it doesn't matter what we think. It's wild.
Well, I think you're being a little modest.
I mean, you like this.
What is that, a regular cigar?
Cigar.
Oh, you smoke cigars?
I do.
I never understood the point, Brad. I mean, you don't inhale it, right?
No, you don't. If you're inhaling it,
You're doing it.
You're doing it way. Your life is gonna. You're gonna regret it.
You have bigger problems.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Okay, so you don't inhale it. So
No.
you're not getting that thing that we feel in our throats that we
No.
like for some reason, and it stinks, and it doesn't get you high. Tell me where the good part of this is.
Now you're making me rethink the whole thing. I don't know why I'm doing it.
Well,
Committed.
I don't know. You look good doing it.
You definitely look good. I think it's.
How old are you? You look like you're late 30s, and I bet you're older because I know you had records out like
I shouldn't even out myself.
25 years ago.
50 now.
50? You're 50? Wow.
Tell my wife I don't look 50. She says I do. She's wrong.
Well, see, this is what I don't get about marriage. Like, why, like...
You think I could say that to her?
No.
In reverse, I definitely couldn't.
Like married people, they get to this place where they say mean things to each other, and it's just sort of accepted. I don't get it.
It's basically every married couple becomes Don Rickles. and
Really?
You know, and they each take their turns. Yeah, for sure. If it works.
How long have you been married?
20 years.
20 years.
It was 20 years in March.
That's, well, I mean...
To an actress.
Right.
It's impossible. We're way past the deadline on it.
No, I think you've passed the difficult part.
Oh yeah.
What is the difficult part?
The difficult part is sort of like you start the journey and then I think you either find out you're compatible or you've made a huge mistake. And in my case, we found out we were completely compatible, especially as time went on. And you either evolve together or it doesn't work, I think. And in our case, yeah, I mean, and we were both older. We were in our 30s before we got married, so I was 30 when I got married, so.
That's hysterical. You consider that older.
Older than Glendale, West Virginia, where I'm from? Yes.
Yeah.
All of my high school friends were married and divorced by the time I was married.
Having never gotten married, I'm way behind the
and it
curve
works
here.
for you. Look at this cave. I don't even want to say man cave. It's a cave.
Right.
It's the best.
Actually, thank you. It's actually it really is a nightclub. It doesn't seem it when the music's not on, but I'd love to get you here sometime when we can play.
Let's do that. That'd be
Oh,
great.
please.
I would love that.
What about when you're like if you're at a party and your song comes on? Is it embarrassing? Is it like
I don't want to hear that shit.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I never watch myself either.
To me, it's like also. I mean, any music that's on when we're eating dinner or anything, my mind is going there. It'd be like if they put on a comedy record and you're trying to eat.
Exactly.
Even if it's not you, even if it's somebody you just
especially
idolize.
if it's not me.
Right.
But just yeah, but me too. Yeah. No, I agree. It's what they call a busman's holiday. I guess that's back when people used to take a bus to take a holiday. So the busman, it was not really a good gig for him to go.
Right,
on,
of course.
But no, I couldn't agree more. But I must say, like a lot of you really good country guys, I like the more the years go on, I like better because I feel like, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like you start out a little too country for me.
Yeah,
you know,
I hear
from
you.
my New Jersey ears.
Yeah.
There's just a kind of a twangy part of it. The lyrics of country songs are the cleverest.
They can be.
And rap.
Yeah,
it's
that's
interesting
it.
they have that in common. Rap and country, both a real premium on lyrics that I think is very often, not always of course, but very often absent in pop. You can put out a pop record with really horrible lyrics. The Beatles did it many times.
Well, and it's funny, they did, and then we all want to do that. But it's like
Well, the music was so good, no one cared.
No, it didn't matter. And rap and country are kissing cousins. In country, we're really doing it. But
no, I've heard rappers say that to me. They say like there's a lot of things in common, like the tour bus is full of your cousins.
Right, that's true. That's true.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a very kind of a family thing, and
yeah,
I mean.
And in country, those are your groupies.
Your cousins?
Yeah. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
It's an incest joke. There'll be a few of those tonight. You'll hear a few.
Yeah. Well, you're from West Virginia, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's the state that when comedians go to an incest joke,
Right.
that's the state they.
What's funny about us from that state is we're like, people would think we'd be offended, but we find it funny.
I'm sure you do.
We totally do.
Yeah, and the thing I was saying about like the music, it's not, again, the lyrics are always clever. I mean, you have some very clever, like, what's that one, Time Well Wasted? Isn't that a record? Isn't that okay. That's such a clever saying. I mean, I wish I thought of that, time well wasted. It's perfect. There's 3 words. It says everything.
The best country songs fit on a t-shirt. You know what I'm saying? Like the hook of the song, like in some ways, not always, but that sort of idea of it's like punchline payoff, and it's definitely kin to stand up.
A little bit.
It really is.
Punchy, I mean, I think in every art form, punchy is better. I think the problem more artists have than any other problem is they do not know how to be their own editor.
Yeah,
they do not know how to kill their children.
Yeah.
You have to kill your children. I'm sure when you make a record and there's 12 cuts on it, I'm sure you made more, right?
For sure. In fact,
and you threw some away.
I'm neck deep right now in that, like trying to figure out what's on this next album. I think I have it figured out, but it's still a matter of, does it fit the vision? And you really want to make sure with what you're doing that, like, I never like to do albums that are just like, these are the songs that I wrote during this time period, and some of them don't fit the theme. Like, I feel like it's always got to have a little bit of a through line. Because a great song, well, you can wait. You could wait an album or 2 if it doesn't fit stylistically where you're headed. And I think, but I'm a dinosaur because I still care about that. Right now, it's song at a time.
But I'm a dinosaur too. I like the album format,
Me too.
And like, there's probably, I would say maybe 100 albums in my entire collection, and I'm a meticulous curator of. This goes back, I mean, I started listening in the late 60s. My early favorites are from when I was 12 years old in 1968, so that's when I first was into music.
Yeah.
But that's some amazing music from 68, 69, 70. Yeah. Okay. So, and then the 70s, 80s, 90s, I feel like the DJ in my car.
Right.
The greatest hits of today. But of all the decades, there's maybe 100 albums where I would say the album is good all the way through.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, and that's why I love the old iPod, because I like to like take just the songs I like.
Right.
Like I still like download albums because I feel like people should get paid. I don't want to,
I agree.
I'm sure you do.
Well, and even not in my standpoint, it's like, it's still about, it really is about these people that worked on them, and also just the idea the art existed in that way, and it's just, it does feel like a butcher cutting these things up from time to time. But the old country stuff to me, when you're talking about that old stuff, that's what I was raised on. I was raised on George Jones,
of course, and I can
Merle Haggard, Buck Owens, all that. And
right, and there's, I don't know what instrument it is, but there's some instrument that makes me just think of that fucking kid from Deliverance.
Well, there's banjo. There's always, he was playing a banjo.
And banjo, fiddle, there's something else, and it's just kind of whiny.
I know which one you're talking about, and my steel guitar player is gonna crack up because it's steel guitar.
And all I can see is that fucking kid sitting on the porch, carving his name in his feet, you know.
Well, in the sense of the steel guitar, it's funny. Every time we make these jokes, like anytime in sound check, I'll literally do this. I'll say, "What is that?" And they'll be like, they're like, "What, boss? What?" It's like that dead cat squeal.
Yes.
I'm kidding. I'm always just teasing.
And you make them call you boss?
Oh yeah.
You should. You're a boss. That's so funny. But like what I was thinking was that like, and then as time goes on, I feel like country stars very often move closer to my area, like the guitars
Yes.
are
Well-
more electric. We lose the twang.
Yeah.
It still has the best of country, and you have songs like that. I mean,
Well, I was raised
the one
on-
you did with LL Cool J.
Yes.
Which is really quite a, I mean,
we
quite ahead of its time too.
Well,
a
God.
little bit, because when you think about,
Yeah, when you go back to that,
maybe
that-
behind. I don't know if they'd even do it today, because
they wouldn't do it. No,
too sensitive about.
it was a third rail, and that was an album, and this is a great case for an album where I wanted the album to be a collection of things that are not expected, where you're out on that limb, and that was one. And what's ironic about that song was it was an album cut and got so much attention. I had a #1 song in country music that week that had nothing to do with that, but that was the ticker on CNN. I remember seeing it, and LL and I were doing
Well, yeah, if you put
interviews and
put out a song called "Accidental Racist,"
Yeah.
with a
yeah.
giant African American music star.
Yes, one of the pioneers, obviously, of rap. And what was interesting about how that came about too was essentially he and I had this idea to play characters in this song, to be. I wanted to be the Southerner wearing the Skinner shirt,
Right.
saying, but that was before, like Dylan Roof shot people with.
Right.
In a church, and it was before there was the debate about all of the Confederate monuments and all of these things. We were ahead of this thing that was about to happen and had no idea. But in that sense, what I tried to do on that was go on the journey and let people say to me, here is the issue we're having, especially in LL's camp, where the African American community wanted to talk about why they did not like it that we were talking about this and what we said or whatever it was. And that was such it was a crazy time, and it was a hard thing to be misunderstood. But at the same time, we set out to learn. We set out to do that with that song. And in the end, I guess that's what art does. But it was crazy.
Exactly.
Crazy for me, as you can imagine.
And it's also what democracy does.
I would
And
think.
it's also what has to happen in multiracial societies. I
Yes.
feel like wokeness in many ways set us back.
There's an interesting thing
I-
about the woke culture thing that a friend of mine who's a psychologist told me, that this is an interesting comparison, because I understand the need for the progress. I've always loved on your show when you talk about celebrating the progress. We don't take the time to do that, to celebrate it. But in the wokeness sense, there's things about when woke goes off the rails. It's when they lean towards being a cult themselves. And that is where
Right.
you got to repent, you got to do this.
And a
you gotta-
religion.
Yeah, there's
John
sort of-
McWhorter, African American, I love him. He's a genius. He's on my show as much as I can get him. He's a professor, but he wrote a whole book about that, the religion of anti-racism.
Right.
There's an original sin, you're born with whiteness, and I mean, we went to such a ridiculous place with this. I felt like, look, we're always in a process of healing, but like Obama was a truly great moment. Did it solve everything? Of course not. But could we just, if we just stayed with what he was saying. He became a star in 2004 at the Democratic Convention when he made the big speech. Now it's somewhat fanciful, but it's hopeful. He said, "We are not Black Americans and white Americans. We are not Latino states, and there's not red states and blue states. We are the United States." And yes, he was like, here I am, half black, half white. I kind of am representing where this country is going. We have to live together. There's no reason to hate each other. There's reason to hate what people in the past did, and some people in the present, yes, but
Right.
not all. And now I feel like
Yeah.
there's this people walking on eggshells, and for races, which of course are continually intermarrying more. I mean, it's happening. Whether there are lots of segregated dorms on colleges, I mean, you can try, but it's happening. People are still coming together, as they should. And I felt like we were at a better place in the sense that we used to be able to talk about it more, like your song, joke about it more. People become asshole buddies when they joke with each other. Now I feel like we're at this place where, oh no, That's funny, and I think he'd laugh, but I better not.
Right, and I think
Because if it goes wrong,
I definitely think that's the path forward for all of us, is finding the humor and the forgiveness, and that's got to happen. I mean, as I look at, like I've talked about, I said this to some friends of mine about, when it comes to trans rights and people trying to become more accepted, they're missing the Modern Family moment. They're missing that thing where, because I came from West Virginia. I did not know a single person who was out of the closet in West Virginia, but before I moved to Tennessee, not one. And
I don't think I did living in New Jersey either. And of course, I'm a little older than you, but I mean, people keep to their tribes, and especially back in that day. I mean, to this day, I really don't know a trans person, and that's not because
I do.
I'm not trying to avoid them. I just feel like we obviously don't travel in the same circles. But I'd be perfectly open to being friends with anybody.
I've got a few, and the thing about that is that when I think back to when I moved to town in Tennessee and started this journey of being a music artist, here comes Ellen doing what she did for gay rights and people becoming like, oh wow, this is she's funny and I really like her, and the next thing you know, here's Will and Grace. But then Modern Family, I had the most conservative friends of mine watch Modern Family, and their favorite two characters were Mitch and Cam, the Eric Stone Street, and it was the type of thing where they would tune in every week to see that couple. And that moment, the next thing you know, we all woke up one day, and it was, everybody seemed for that. And it's no coincidence that art had taken us there as a society.
TV specifically.
TV, and I feel like
when TV shows people something, it normalizes it for good and bad. It normalized Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But it also normalized, you're right, Will and Grace. It's like, and this is interesting that, your friends would relate most to the gay characters, which tells me your friends are probably gay.
I'll let them know. But it's like that. It's like they thought, oh man, I understand the things this couple is going through, and
of course, because and that's the overarching point of this whole discussion we're having is that, it's not impossible to get to the place, even with our horrible, sorry racial history and our sorry history to women and to every fucking person. I get it, except the white men. It's not impossible to get to a place now where we recognize we actually have more in common.
For sure.
There was a time when we didn't, where white people and black people had so little in common because, of course, the oppression, the horrible oppression that was visited upon them. So you couldn't even, in the South, you couldn't look a white person in the eye walking down the street.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, you don't have anything in common with that person. Now we're all in line together at Starbucks, and we're doing this, and we're doing that. There are still problems. Yes, of course. Nothing will ever be perfected. But I keep saying, can we just live in the year we're living in? Can we not go by these zombie lies, which are lies that something that's been debunked?
It comes back to
but
celebrating
you're still pretending is alive.
Yeah, right.
And let's not pretend that we're in 1958 or 78. Let's just live in the year we're living in, acknowledge that there's work to be done, and buy your records. Wiz Khalifa's coming here.
Is he really?
After I'm done with you, Brad.
That's going to be just like this. It'll be exactly.
Oh, also, speaking of music, Spotify put us on video now. We were just.
Oh, that's great.
We were just. It is.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
Because I've been watching the video version of this on Apple.
Yes.
A lot.
I feel like it's much better to see it because, I don't know if you saw Richard Dreyfuss, but
I did.
Okay, you have to see that one to believe it.
Sinking into the chair I thought the chair was eating Richard Dreyfuss.
When I started this, I said, I want to find a place where I can make the guest feel even more comfortable. Of course, it's always the host's wish to make the guest feel, but I want to take it to a new level, and I feel with that episode I did. I mean, I feel like
You definitely did.
that.
I learned more about Richard Dreyfuss than I ever wanted to know.
What can I do to make you more comfortable, Brad Paisley? Can I? You don't smoke the wacky weed anymore?
I don't. I've never done it.
Oh, come on!
I've never
Never?
done it. This is not the day.
Actually, I would be a very good one to get stoned with for the first time. First of all, 45 years of experience.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, that's something. We're here in a place where we could get help if you freaked out or something, which I don't think would happen.
Which
on
I
pod.
definitely would.
But I would be a perfect one to talk you down, being older and, you know, a wisdom of the years. All that kind of
All of that stuff?
I'm telling you.
You're not making me feel better
that's
about it.
amazing. But see, that's another thing I feel like country stars, especially in the modern era, and maybe not back in the Hank Williams day, but country stars and rap stars, both big stoners. Willie Nelson and Snoop Dogg are the two biggest stoners in the world.
For sure.
Outside of me and Woody Harrelson. And they both are that, they're both, well, Willie's 90 now, so he's slowed down a little.
He's sharp as a tack still to some degree. I mean, it's an amazing
But
thing.
he doesn't smoke constantly like he did all his life.
Doesn't he?
No, not anymore.
The biggest, the most smoke I've ever seen come out of a human being was Keith Richards. When I've done some shows with the Stones, and it's like, and Keith's like, come to the dressing room, and he comes to the dressing room, and like this big, he's smoking a football, you know, like this.
Keith Richards?
Yeah.
What year is this?
I don't know. Maybe, I don't want to get him in trouble. A while ago.
Why would that get him? Keith Richards? Yeah, let's
No,
not
it's
let
not
the
getting
cat
him in
out of the
trouble.
bag
It was
that he was
it
a
was
drug
like
user.
The teens, like 2015 probably, 2016.
That's like the tamest thing he's ever done.
Well, that's the thing is he
used to have his-
considers himself sober because it's now vodka and weed is all he does.
I mean, this guy was so fucked up, he had to like steal the blood of Swiss children.
How old is Keith
Do you
now?
remember that? He went to Switzerland or something and put in children's blood. Actually,
Giving birth to the QAnon theory.
now that I'm mentioning this, I think I'd like to do that myself.
Switzerland is a wonderful place.
And children have great blood.
They do.
I mean, that's the one good thing about them.
That's why I had kids.
We can take, right, because their blood was fitting you.
It totally does. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Every night I say good night. Put on your IV. And that's how we do it.
they say
in the celebrity world.
when they give young blood in the lab to old mice, they act young. And when they put old blood in young mice, they act old. It's a lot about the blood.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. And you're not helping the QAnon theory right now.
What's the QAnon theory about?
Oh, the celebrities in Hollywood all
Oh, eat babies and drink
the
their blood?
Yeah.
I really
You
have
just,
done.
you
Yeah,
just
you're right.
literally, they are going to put, this is going to be on
Right.
websites in the dark web.
I didn't say we. Look,
We,
I can't.
Look at you, all of a sudden you're in it.
You know, they did say I was. They have this thing about red shoes.
Really?
Yes,
So
that-
Garrison Keillor is
The Garrison Keillor.
he always wears red shoes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, he must be like the president then. They have a thing that red shoes is like our way of signaling that we're the part of the pedophile cult or the baby eating cult. And they found a picture of me. I did have a pair of. I thought they were.
That's your fault, Bill. Ever wearing red shoes?
No,
you are not a red. You can't pull off red shoes.
I was 30 or whatever.
Well, maybe then you could.
Even then I couldn't. But I'm saying I should be forgiven for being stupid. But first of all, I thought they were burgundy, and they really were. But they were a little too reddish. It's true. Actually, they're I don't know. I'd have to look at them again. I still have them. They were actually the first pair of shoes I ever bought, so it must go back to my 20s. I remember that there was the first pair of nice shoes I ever personally bought. And
they were red.
In this, you know, in pictures they can come out a different shade than it really is.
Yeah, always.
So, or maybe they doctored it, but they were reddish and they looked red in the picture. And I remember there was a thing in the press for a little bit where they were saying, "Oh, we found out." So ever since then, but I've said a couple of times on the show, I did a whole bit where I said I was Q because we don't know who Q is. and I knew a certain percentage.
No, I saw those episodes. That's
Oh, really?
yeah. I don't miss your show.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I love that. Oh. So, yeah, I said I was Q, and I know a certain percentage of them actually believe that because it's so wrong, it's right. You know, it's like, who was the last person you would think would be Q?
Yeah.
And then it was, so some of them I'm sure are listening to this and say, oh, this isn't just a fake he's doing to make other people think he's not really Q, but we know it's a signal to us.
Right.
So red shoes, yes, means you're one of those baby eaters. That's the signal.
I'm throwing away my red shoes right now.
Well,
my red boots. I've got red cowboy
You're a
boots.
rock star. You can wear anything.
I don't know about that.
Well, I do. I mean, you're up there, people are screaming, they're mouthing your words as you sing your songs to them. You're playing guitars, you're all amped up. I mean, literally with amps.
True.
And hopefully not that scrawling thing that makes me think of the Deliverance Kid. And then
If you ever come see a show,
I will.
I will make him take the night off. Steel guitar player gets to watch from the front of the house.
But getting back to, see, this is the problem with marijuana. You get off the track. Not that I had a track, but am I wrong that like a lot of guys like you, Keith Urban, Kid Rock, although he was never really country, he was like actually more rap.
He definitely, he's embedded himself in Nashville though, for sure.
Right, but the country sound became more this pop sound that I like with like Brooks and Dunn. Like,
yeah, which interestingly, like Brooks and Dunn's a great example of their Rolling Stones influence is very prevalent.
Right.
Right. But they definitely have some of those instruments you dislike in their music. Yeah. But hopefully you'll listen past that.
But more in the early stuff.
Right.
So I'm saying as it went along, I felt like they it was like, hey, we're going to make our 6th album. Who's going to tell Clem that we won't need...
Well, then you just don't tell Clem. If you have enough money, you pay Clem anyway, and you tell the front of house guy, mute him. Don't let anybody hear him. Well, I've got a few of those guys.
Well...
No, yeah. I think you're right though that we certainly have adopted. We're way closer to the Eagles these days.
Exactly.
Than we
the
are
Eagles.
Than we are Hank Williams. But
right.
I lament some of that because some of what was going on in the old days was art and genius. And George Jones, I mean, to me, the voice he had and the things he could do vocally. Yeah, I mean, but in the same sense, like we are now certainly inhabiting the lane where people would listen to the radio to hear a lyric, and they're listening to us because they want to hear a lyric.
A lyric and a lick.
And a lick, and I'm always stealing from because I grew up learning Clapton and learning Van Halen, and like we cover Hot for Teacher in the show, and we do like just because it's fun to do, and as a band we're able to. Not a lot of bands can even play that. My drummer's a beast, and so to be able to do that, to me, I love being able to say this is country too when we do it, and to be able to say like somebody asked Waylon Jennings once. They said, "What makes a song country?" And he said, "When I sing it." And it's like, no kidding. When he sings it, it probably is.
So why don't you have an accent? You have you're.
I'm from West Virginia. I know, think I've been away long enough that a lot of it's gone. From
yeah, you don't.
I can when I'm around my friends in Tennessee. Sitting here with you, I'm sort of a newscaster. I lose it.
You're a chameleon.
I'm definitely.
I see that. Like people, yeah. That's another thing that probably happens in the rap community. You know?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, when you get too far, that's been what's been fun about this new album for me is I named it "Son of the Mountains" because I'm from that place, and I just spent last weekend in West Virginia filming the photo shoot for the album cover and a couple of music videos. And one of the songs is about the area I'm from, or several of them are, but one of them in particular is dealing with the opioid crisis. And so I had to go back and immerse myself in that. I did interviews with survivors and interviews with the local sheriff and the local fire chief, she was unbelievable, the stories she has of that, because West Virginia was ground zero for this. So when you go back, you start to see, oh, okay, this is where I'm from again. You do remove yourself, and next thing you know, you have a big farm in Tennessee, and you've got success.
You do?
And well, it's like
You're saying one does or you do?
Well,
I'm guessing both.
I do and one does. We're all in this accepted, gated community where they stick the singers.
Don't apologize for it.
No, I'm not. But
you worked hard?
Well, what I'm saying, though, it's very similar to rap in that sense, in that you don't want to get above your raising, and you want to make sure that you can still realize that the best songs you wrote and the things that you are basically putting out for folks it needs to tell the stories they want to hear. And sometimes I'll write a song like Celebrity where I am making fun of of that, and talking about being
What's the one where you say you're it's funny, again, very funny. Like, that's what I always was attracted, like, with country music, especially your stuff. Like, I'm much more interesting online.
I'm so much cooler online.
I'm so much cooler online. Again, something that is such a great universal observation that, I think people who are not famous can understand what we're talking about.
For sure.
And people who are famous totally relate to that.
Yeah. Well, it's like writing that was fun because I had the idea, and then we were trying to find the subtle things you would say online. My favorite verse of that is the second verse. I'll never forget, I was writing this with Kelly Lovelace and Chris Dubois, two co-writers of mine. And I remember Chris sitting there, and he was kind of quiet for a while. And I said, what are you thinking for the second verse? And he goes, where's the Rose Parade? I said, Pasadena. He said, is that LA? I said, yeah. He said, okay, cool. He's like, in real life, the only time I've ever even been to LA, because you're claiming you're from LA in the song.
Right.
Was when I got the chance in the marching band to play tuba in the Rose Parade.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
that's a great line.
I remember dying going, that's
a great line.
And his exact thing was, he said, I just remember the kid on the school bus. The other kids would bring their flute for band practice. They all picked the right instrument. The kid that picked tuba had to lug that damn tuba onto that school bus every day. And
that's a great line.
There's no way to look cool playing the tuba.
It's amazing how, a line like that in a song.
It's a million. It says.
It's just like a Easter egg,
Well, that's what I like about country writing is when you get the line that's kind of a grenade, like sort of like you picked a fine time to leave me, Lucille, like Kenny Rogers' song. In a bar in Toledo, he looked like a mountain. Also, The Gambler. Think about this. Don Schlitz writes The Gambler for Kenny Rogers, right? Here's the opening line of The Gambler. On a warm summer's evening, on a train bound for nowhere, I met up with a gambler. We were both too tired to sleep. It's like there's a million.
You're in it immediately.
Oh,
yeah.
God, it's like a script.
Oh, I know.
And that's when it's art, and that's what you strive for, is like hitting that note.
Yeah. No, it's so funny. I used to have this argument with Clive Davis about lyrics, and he thought he knew something about music, but I was arguing with him. but for my personal taste, I would just say, Clive, lyrics are not that important. Like, I have to like the song. If I like the song, the lyrics, if they're great, it's a great extra. If they're not, I don't give a shit.
Right.
I mean, again, the Beatles wrote some really terrible lyrics.
I guess so, but it's funny because
they were just hurried.
Being that they built the house,
and young.
All of us are trying to build the same house, so they're not terrible anymore in that sense.
Well, but I'm talking about...
Like, what's a terrible Beatle lyric to you?
Love me do. You know I love you.
Yeah, but
I'll always be true.
They moved on from that.
Of course, but I'm just saying, they were still very young when they were starting, and so some of the stuff, and other stuff is genius, and some of it is just... I had a young girlfriend once said, I like the Beatles, but they're just the lyrics are gobbledygook. And I was like, first I was like offended. Honey, how can you say that? And I thought about
We're breaking
I'm
up.
like, yeah, some of them are gobbledygook. Some of them are just, if you're stoned and you're thinking about them, like, especially John Lennon liked to write like picture Like McCartney wrote more like he loved characters. He would think of a character. Desmond has a barrow in the marketplace.
Yes, exactly.
Who's Desmond? He's got,
Right.
you know, Lady Madonna.
Yep.
I'm going to write Eleanor Rigby. It's just
Right.
like he'd pick a, and, you know, George Harrison wrote about the Lord.
A lot.
Almost
A lot.
Yes. And John would just, I feel like he was like, oh, sometimes he was inspired and sometimes it was just like, yeah, it was like that book he put out once. He loved wordplay. And, you know, I don't know exactly what, an impression of his wife, which he made and donated to the National Trust. A soap impression of his wife. I've been listening to it for 50 years. I don't know what it means. I don't care. The song is great.
Well, and I get in my own way that way a little bit because I'm so obsessed with the lyric being good that I think there's times when I'll agonize over the melody and trying to say exactly what I want to say with a melody that works. And what's fascinating for me is when you marry them both, and you can.
Of course.
And
yes,
that's what I'm trying to do on the latest stuff is like make sure that that if I'm culling something out of this, that it's the right one, that it's the one that doesn't tick the box.
It's always better when you have both. But if you don't have, you know, there are lyrics that I just don't understand. They're just sound pictures like Crimson and Clover. Did you ever hear that one?
Yeah.
You know, it's the sound, it's just a sound collage. It just sounds great.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the fuck it means, and I don't care. Crimson and Clover over and over. Yeah, sure, whatever. It's sexy. I mean, the first line is, I mean, put that on next time you're trying to get laid. Really, I saw it in a movie. I saw Mila Kunis do it in a movie. She's in this movie with, I think, Clive Owen. It wasn't a big movie, but it's kind of gritty. It's good. He's a convict anyway, gets with her. And it's like the first time they're about to fuck. And this is like in the 70s. And she gets up the old turntable and she puts the needle down. And first line of, you know, Crimson and Clover, I'm sure you could sing it better than I could.
I don't need to try today.
And... you know, won't you come walking over? All that echoey stuff.
Right.
You know, and I'm waiting to show her. And some of it is, you can understand, it's very sexy, and then we go into Crimson and Clover and like, what the fuck? And then there are songs where I absolutely don't like the lyric. They're saying something. There's a new one like that, but I love the song. Miley Cyrus, Flowers.
Oh, you don't like the lyric of that?
No.
Why?
Because
I like the lyric of that. I think she hit what we were talking about right there, which is a lyric that is, I love the lyric, and then also the melody. It is in your, you mean, it's in
I
my
love
head
the
now.
record.
Just that,
I
you
do
said
not
the
like
name.
I do not like the idea. I can love myself better than you can.
Well,
I don't think that's a good message.
I'm going to argue on her behalf.
I
Here's
understand
why.
it's a breakup album,
Yeah,
so
it's
I know
about
where
that
she's coming
guy.
from.
It's not about. It's not about.
Right, but still.
In principle.
But of course, I have to relate to it. I have to hear it. So when she says, "I can send myself flowers," yeah, you can. But the whole point of flowers is that somebody is sending to you. Yes, you can. You can do a lot of things. You can huff lemon pledge, but it's not an idea I want in my head. And I don't think that it's very unromantic, and it's not true. No one can love you better. I mean, you can't get the kind of love you need from another person.
But better than that guy.
Better than
That's what she's saying.
I understand that. I understand it on that level.
I'm going to turn you around on this.
No. I mean, it's both. We're both right.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, but compared to, like, here's a song we could compare it to. Barbra Streisand and Neil Diamond had a big hit about 1980.
You don't buy me flowers.
Correct. You don't bring me flowers.
You don't bring me flowers. That's right.
Anymore.
You
And
don't sing me love
it's a
songs.
very sad, affecting song that every couple can relate to.
Universally true.
When you lose that thing, but she wants someone to bring her flowers, okay? And this is like, fuck off, bitch. I don't need your flowers. And it made me think of masturbation, which I am a big fan of and have been for many years. Compared to these kids today who, like, sometimes they can't even get into a relationship because they're so hooked on porn. And porn is so good now, we have to admit, that they don't even want to bother with a girlfriend. And I must say, as much as I love masturbation and as much as it has done for me, I never once did it and thought, this is better. This is, it's different and it's great to have it, but it never made me say, oh, I don't have to have sex because I have this. No, this is a good stopgap, but it's not better. And no one can love you better than someone else. No one can make you feel, you can't make yourself feel the way another person can feel by, I guess, corroborating what I thought I was a pretty good guy and this person fucking loves me.
Right. But, and back to what you were saying where we're both right, that was the best advice I ever got from a co-writer and also a guy that ended up becoming a business partner in our publishing company. I would go in with a song and play him the song and say, what do you think? He's like, I love it. That second verse doesn't make any sense. And I would say, no, you're wrong. And he's like, I can't be wrong. I can't be wrong. It's an opinion, I can't be wrong. He's like, I don't like it. And I'm like, well, you're wrong. He's like, you can't say that. And would make me get better at that. And that was the best, that's the advice I give Nashville aspiring writers is like, listen guys, do yourself a favor. When somebody doesn't like something you did, they're probably being honest with you. They're not doing it to be a jerk. They're just being honest. And it's like, you will become a better songwriter if you just listen.
They also may not be right.
They may not. But at the same time, if somebody though says, I hate that,
because there's an awful lot of things that we know in the art world, not just music, but lots of things where everyone thought it was a piece of shit, or no one believed in it, and one person who was the artist believed in it and pushed it through, and then we look back and go, oh, wow.
Well, don't listen to the industry on that. Listen to your fans. If your fans love something, they're right.
But you don't always know what the fans are going to love because sometimes you have to lead them.
For sure. And that's been my whole thing in country music lately is trying to find ways to say things and get them to come with me, in the sense that it's like, guys, it's like, I know you're set in your ways on some of these things, but don't go the wrong direction on Ukraine. Don't go the wrong direction in terms of freedom, in terms of the things that we all should have. And that's what this new record is largely looking at to me, are these themes that it's like trying to get them. It's like a song of mine called American Saturday Night, which celebrates all of these people that make America what it is. And it's like, and what's fun is on any Saturday night in America, in the middle of the heartland, is this. Yeah, man. It's like, yeah, I know, I'm celebrating our diversity, and they are too. And so they're willing to do it if you take them there musically. But that's the thing, is you've got to find a way to give them that thing that they like.
But don't always let somebody, if they don't like something, deter you, because I'm telling you, you can think of a lot of songs. You know the Beach Boys' Good Vibrations?
Totally.
Okay. We're talking about 1965. Mm-hmm. I remember I was probably 9 years old, hearing it on the beach. Yeah. Like, I wasn't into music yet, but the radio was on, I was aware. And like, you could see why, looking back, I could see why nobody wanted to put that out.
Right.
That didn't sound, it had the Beach Boys harmonies and stuff, but it wasn't like, Syrup City, here we come,
Right.
They had put out some, he was getting much more sophisticated, and that has some weird sonic flourishes in there. I don't even know what the instruments are. Woo, it starts out, and it changes tempos, and it's just one of those songs that it's a little symphony in a record. We have Bohemian Rhapsody.
For sure.
Is another one. I'm sure they didn't want to put that. What? There's opera in the middle of it and all this kind of stuff. But somebody believes in it, and the audience doesn't know they're going to like that until you put it out.
For sure. And I think it's sort of like, I think you probably find this in stand-up. There are jokes work, and they're gonna work because they work, and you're gonna you believe in that enough, and you stand there and do it. You know what I'm saying?
You better.
You got to lean in. You have to lean into that,
Right.
And the audience smells the fear. They know.
Of course.
And they do in recorded music too. Like they know when you are like, yeah, I think when you're putting your toe in the water and going, I don't know, what do you think? They know.
But I still think it's easier for a musician, and I've seen plenty of times, well, maybe not plenty of times, but I've seen enough times, like I'm thinking specifically about charity events, where it's a big charity event, they're always the worst audience in the world for everybody.
Usually.
I always think, you people, charity should begin here, okay? Can we have some charity for me?
Right.
And okay, so I've seen bands like performing at these places where I was probably performing also, and I could tell they fucking hated it. First of all, it's not their crowd.
Yeah.
That's the same thing why I don't like it. It's not my specific crowd. Some people there who like you, and some people. I saw the Eagles once. This is about 2007 or 8. It was right after their comeback album came out, which was awesome.
Hell Freezes Over, right?
No. That was 94. In 2007,
right.
They didn't make a new record. It was called Long Road Out of Eden.
Long Road Out of Eden,
It's a double album. It's fantastic. It could fit right well into their other catalog. So they played, I think, the first song, and the whole room is just talking. And I just wanted to stand up and shout, this is the fucking Eagles.
I watched Glenn Frey. I went to the forum. Joe Walsh had me go as a guest, and I went and watched from front of house at the forum. I got to see them in the forum the last time that they did Intact with Glenn.
Right.
And which was when they reopened the forum, which is an amazing venue now. And I watched Glenn do his thing where he went off on that audience. Oh man, because he didn't like what they were doing. Like it was like watching a stand-up comedian just like tell them off. Like,
but it was their show.
Oh yeah.
And he still didn't like the audience?
He didn't like what they were doing. He didn't like that they were. It was interesting. It was too bad because it was like they were standing. He told them you should stand on the up tempos and sit on the ballads. You don't stand on the ballads. And I was like in the back, and Joe was like, yeah, he shouldn't have done that. But it was a bad night. He just did that. But it didn't matter. I mean, the audience.
I mean, that's a compliment that even on the ballads they're standing.
Yeah.
It's not an insult.
I know. But it was one of those things where some of that generation had their own ideas about what audiences should do. And maybe that's what their audiences did forever.
I never heard anyone have that idea.
Yeah,
about what audience should do.
It was new to me too.
I don't think we need to defend this at all. I think that's just pure nuts. I don't know why. But he was an ornery guy.
Yeah.
I remember after watching the great documentary on them, and I was talking about it with a friend, and I said, Glenn wasn't just the co-writer and the great harmonist, but he was also the general manager of the Eagles. It was like a sports team, and he kept trading players. It's like, yeah, you know what? I think I should.
Sorry, we're going to have to send you down.
You were going to send.
We're going to send you down to Poca.
Yeah, because you know what? Bernie Ledden, in the first incarnation of the played a little bit of that stuff I don't like.
Oh right, yeah, the bend, yeah, I know.
And I got. And
I'm gonna change my. If you're ever at a show, I'm gonna have to change my whole damn set list.
Not your whole set list.
I'll be like, no, we're not doing that one tonight. Can't do that one. Sorry, no, that's heavy. That's heavy on the pedal steel. We're gonna have to. I can't wait till Randall, my pedal steel player.
I don't think it's the pedal steel.
I bet it is.
Really?
I bet it is.
Is that really? Is that the ultimate country instrument? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? I'm surprised at that.
It might be that. If it's not the banjo, it's that.
No.
It's not the fiddle.
No, I always thought it was a bird you had trained.
Yeah, it's basically that. Now, you could certainly stick a bird, you could stick a parakeet over here and get the same effect. Mic him up. We could save some money on that.
Well, I would love to come see you sometime.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
When are you going to play Nashville again? Do you know?
No, but I'm, let's see, I remember I was there in August. I think it was almost 2 years ago. It's got to be next year because I don't think it's this year. Maybe it was last year. Yeah, I played every 2 years, the Ryman.
The Ryman's the best.
The Ryman's the best.
It's an interesting thing, that little preserved, and actually, that's the thing about the Ryman is the history of that place all the way back to what it began as a church where they basically had the Confederate soldiers after the war, and the fact that it's come that far to do what it does and to host people like Aretha Franklin playing it eventually,
Right.
and
Yes, and we have to do that. We have to bury the ghosts of the past. I remember when we did I thought it was a pretty funny editorial one week. It was about 5 years ago, and who was it? Oh, Ryan Reynolds got married they found out after the fact that they got married in the South on someplace that used to be a plantation.
Yeah.
So there had to be, as always in America, a cringing apology about how horrible we are because and of course, he's fucking from Canada. It's like, why do we go through this charade? Like, what the fuck does Ryan Reynolds have to do with the Confederacy? And first of all, every inch of the South was a plantation. I mean,
Well,
it's, for fuck's sake.
that was the thing for me, like moving from West Virginia to Tennessee in the 90s when I moved there to do this. And eventually buying a farm, and I don't know what happened on my farm before I was there. There's no record of it, but it probably wasn't good. And it's like, I mean, and it's like in that sense. But I'm from a state like I've had this conversation with a lot of West Virginians. Like, we're the state that said no, and we exist because we said, well, we're going to leave.
Really?
Yeah, we were Virginia. We cut.
Oh, that's
off.
right.
And so there aren't. I didn't grow up around that. I didn't grow up around statues that need to be torn down or any of the any of that. And so when I moved to Tennessee, it was really, there was a lot of that culture shock a little bit.
It would be a really good remake, Saturday Night Fever, but instead of in this urban setting where he is from, he's from Brooklyn, famously. You've seen Saturday Night Fever, John Travolta. He's Tony Manero from Brooklyn, and his dream is to cross that river, and that's many people's dreams in the boroughs of New York.
Right.
To cross the river to Manhattan, where the beautiful people are, and to make it there.
Yeah,
and you could redo that, like where you're from the small town, but you want to get to like Mount Pilot. I remember on Andy Griffith's show, they're always like, they lived in Mayberry, but if you really wanted to go shopping,
you go get Chinese in Mount Pilot. You have Chinese food and go to a movie in Mount Pilot.
Or even Raleigh. I mean, if you made it to Raleigh.
Raleigh was called the Concrete Jungle in Andy Griffith.
Yeah, so you could do the country version of that.
It would be Saturday Night Low Grade Fever. It would be like that. That's actually a good idea.
It actually is a good idea. I come up with so many good ideas on Club Random.
Yes, I saw. What was the one you had for? You had one for somebody. Richard
Yes,
Dreyfuss.
I did. I did. I had many great ideas.
I remember thinking, yeah, you should make that.
Right. I can spot a mile away who should be a detective on CBS.
Oh, right.
That, to me, that's always like when it's over. Not over, but like, when they come to you for detective work on CBS, it means you were a star, a movie star. And now, it's not horrible. It's
probably great.
The pay is great.
I can't think of a better fate.
I can't.
Than starring Brad Paisley as Detective.
Really?
Detective Lawrence.
You would do that?
No.
No. You never had any interest in
acting?
Yeah.
No.
That's so smart. You know what?
I've said no to a lot of things. Like, they offered me a few things here and there, and I was like, "What's it do?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's 3 months in Oklahoma." And I'm like, "No, I'm not."
Some of them have actually done quite well.
Well,
Tim
you know what I
McGraw?
would do? Oh, Tim's great. Tim is great at it, and he's worked at it. That's the thing. I have an actress wife. I know what it takes.
Right.
And I don't think for a second I'm an actor. I know she's an actor. She married me. But it's like anything. No, seriously. She's like, no, there's times when it's like, I love you too. And I'm like, good job. Because I know you don't right now. In the case of that, though, I've never wanted to do, that's for other people. I mean, the one thing I would do, and I've said this forever, is a Will Ferrell movie or something like that. Like that's fun, but that's not the same as something with De Niro. I mean, it's you go and do something with Will, and it's like I'm playing whatever. You can cast me as whatever you want, and I would do that in a heartbeat.
But a lot of them, if you're genuinely a down-home country boy, it plays so well on camera.
Right.
And they don't have to do a hell of a lot of acting because it's like a natural charm. You know who turned in an amazing acting performance in the 70s? Mac Davis.
Mac. Well, you know what's funny? I bought
Dallas 40. Have you ever
That was
seen?
my first concert. I was 5, and I begged
wow.
my parents to take me to see Mac Davis at the Ohio State Fair. So
Wow.
they drive me a couple of hours to the
Wow.
Ohio State Fair to hear Hard to Be Humble and I Believe in Music and all of it. So I go to see Mac Davis, and I finally got to meet him later. He lived out here. And what's funny is yesterday, I go to this comic book memorabilia shop with my kids, and I see a Mac Davis album, and I had to buy it because just to hang it on the wall. It's called Stop and Smell the Roses is the name of the album. And the album is him with a cigarette and a cowboy hat, smoking a cigarette, like literally half of a cigarette's gone. And the album's called Stop and Smell the Roses. And I'm like, what art director said, you know what sells this? A Marlboro in your fingers. It's the craziest album cover I've ever seen.
Oh, they just didn't care about it.
I literally bought that yesterday, but Mac was a good actor.
In North Dallas 40,
Oh,
he's fantastic.
And what an icon he was at the time.
So, to conclude our time together, and I hope we do it again either
I'd love
on or
to
off
do it again,
camera.
anytime.
Would you duet with me on a Mac Davis song that I just thought of?
What's
Speaking
that?
of him. Baby, baby, don't get hooked on
Baby, baby, don't get hooked on me. Yeah, oh my God.
Because I'll just,
Yes.
and I'll set you free. There's a great line in that where he goes, and it's warm where you're touching me. And I remember thinking,
Those songs back then, what Bill Anderson, the great country writer and my buddy, he used to call those skin songs. It was always about, had to get some mention of touch and skin and your subtle skin and your...
I felt like that was so blatant in an era where they censored anything. Like, and it's warm where you're touching me. It just
Well,
immediately.
there's a million of those back then in country music. I mean, you know, if I said you had a beautiful body, would you hold it against me?
Well,
things like that. It was amazing.
Right.
And how that got past censors. It did.
How about Honky Tonk Badonkadonk by our
That got
friend
past the
Trace
censors,
Adkins?
too.
All right, I'll say, I'm going to call him tonight
I
or
would
tomorrow
love
because we all have to get together. You love him, right?
I do. He's great. Thank you.
Club Random.
That was so much fun.
So
I'm
much
so
fun.
glad I got to know you.
Thank you for having me.
No.
I appreciate it.
Club Random.